If you're in search of an affordable way to get a better stance for your 2021 or newer Ford Bronco, this Fabtech 1.5-inch front leveling kit will be a great solution. Now this kit will raise the nose of your Bronco up to eliminate that factory rake if you want more of that defined and level look out of your Bronco, while increasing your ground clearance if you're hitting the dirt and want that additional clearance for more confident driving. Now this will also allow you to fit a larger tire while not getting too involved in the suspension if you're looking to keep it pretty easy when it comes to getting that added height. This kit is going to be super simple, as you can see, while offering all the benefits of the level look, the better approach angles for improved off-road capability, and the option to swap out your factory tires for a larger set. Now speaking of tires, you may be able to fit a 37 in the wheel well, but it may require minor trimming, so 35s are going to be your best bet and provide the best fit if you don't want to make any modification. Nonetheless, these spacers will work in conjunction with the factory strut and don't require disassembly of the coilover, making them a lot easier to install compared to other designs. I do also want to say that the spacer itself is going to measure out to 1 inch, but don't be alarmed with the suspension geometry as well as spring compression. This is going to achieve that 1.5 inches of lift in the front. Now, the spacers themselves will be made of aircraft-grade billet aluminum, being very durable and able to carry the load in addition to high-grade hardware that is included in the box. Now, what I think is also great about this setup is that Fabtech states that these spacers are engineered to eliminate ball joint, tie rod, and steering bind, so you won't have to worry about your drivability being compromised too much with this kit. Now, I would like to note that although you do not have to disassemble the strut in order to install this kit, which is a bonus, you will need a spring compressor in order to compress the spring to rotate the perch for proper installation, so I would just note that you need that specialty tool on hand. Now when it comes to suspension kits as a whole, this is going to be incredibly affordable at around $225. Now compared to other leveling kits, this is going to be right on par and pretty average as far as the price is concerned, but it's going to offer a little bit more in height compared to other smaller or thinner spacers. Not only that, but this is going to be super simple with just these two spacers. It's not going to require anything else in the kit, and that's again not going to require you to disassemble the entire coilover, which will give you the benefit of saving a little bit of money if you're taking this to a mechanic, or saving you some extra work if you're doing it at home. Install is going to be a 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter and should take you about 3 hours to get the job done front to back with the right hand tools and the right setup. Now at this point we can head over to the shop and show you a detailed breakdown on the process of how to get this onto your Bronco. So that is going to wrap it up for me. Let's go ahead and get into it.
For this install you will need air and electric impacts, various ratchets, a cutoff wheel, a flap wheel, 3/8 to 1/2 inch adapter if necessary, 3/8 swivel, 6mm Allen socket, 10, 15, 18, 19, and 21mm sockets, 35mm axle socket, 15mm ratcheting wrench, 21mm wrench, a pry bar, bungee cord, caliper hanger, a Sharpie, an air hammer, a spring compressor, and your provided Loctite. Also not shown here is a jack and jack stands to get the vehicle off the ground. What's up guys, today we're going to be installing a leveling kit on our Bronco, so let's get started. So we're going to start off by removing our brake line and ABS line bracket from our knuckle. So we'll grab our 10mm socket on our impact, go ahead and get that bolt off and get this out of the way. And once we have it off, we'll go ahead and thread this bolt back in just a couple turns. It's easier to keep track of it that way. So now we're going to remove our two 15mm bolts holding our caliper to our bracket. So we'll grab our 15mm socket on our impact and run these off. So once we have those off, we can go ahead and pull our caliper off of our bracket. I'm going to grab a caliper hanger. Go ahead and get this up out of the way. And we can go ahead and pull our pads off. For those, we're just going to pop them right out of their set spots. Set these aside. Once we have that done, we can come in and remove our 2 caliper bracket bolts. So now we can go ahead and grab our 18 mil socket on our ratchet and go ahead and get our caliper bracket bolts off. Now you do want to remember to break both bolts loose before removing one of them, just to prevent your bracket from swinging. Once we get our bolts out, we can go ahead and set our bracket aside. So now we can go ahead and remove our rotor, set that aside. So while these steps are not essential to uninstalling your factory setup and getting your strut out, it is good practice to release some of the pressure and weight that's going to be on your lower ball joint once we disconnect the knuckle from our upper ball joint. Next, we can go ahead and remove our tie rod nut from our tie rod. So we'll grab our 21 mil socket on our impact, run this off. So now we have to get our tie rod unseated from the knuckle. So we're gonna grab our ball joint service kit. Now, if you don't have a service tool for ball joints, you can take a ball peen hammer and give your tie rod a few smacks right on the knuckle here, and it'll kind of shock it to get it out of the seat. But if you have one of these, it's a little less destructive. So we've got that set. We'll grab our 16 mil socket. Go ahead and run this up. And that pops right out of the seat. So now we'll go ahead and remove our tie rod from our knuckle. So now we'll grab our 21 mil socket on our impact and go ahead and get our tie rod end off of our, that's not a tie rod end. So now we'll grab our 21 mil socket on our impact and go ahead and remove the nut for our sway bar end link. And you want to do that on both sides at the same time so that your sway bar is free from both of your knuckles, trying to keep it from having full range of motion. Now we can go ahead and loosen up our nut for our upper ball joint. So we'll grab our 18 mil socket and swivel adapter on our impact. We're going to keep this on just a few threads, so we're not going to pop this out just yet. So now we can go ahead and remove our 2 lower strut mounting nuts. So we'll grab our 18 mil socket on our impact and run these off. So now we're going to grab a bungee cord just to prep our knuckle. So we're going to wrap it around here, and we're going to use this 10 mil bolt as kind of a pivot, an anchor point rather. We're going to hook our bungee cord over on the back of this bracket over here. Notice we're not using any brake lines to hook to, just the bracket itself. Next, we're going to grab our 35 millimeter axle socket on our impact and go ahead and loosen up our axle nut. Now we're not going to take it all the way off. We are just going to leave a few threads on just to help keep our axle from going too far out of the knuckle. Now we're going to grab an air hammer. We're going to set it right into the center little recess there on the axle and just push it back away from the knuckle a little bit, just to give us more room for drop to get our strut out. And that'll come out more once we separate our knuckle here. So now for our upper ball joint, we are going to give it a few whacks with a hammer. It's a little bit easier than trying to get the service tool in here between the strut and the knuckle here. So we're just going to give it a few taps. And pop that right out of its seat. Then we'll go ahead and push down on our control arm, remove our nut, pop our ball joint out of our knuckle. And we can bring this down and out of the way. Then if we need to, we can drive our axle back farther to get more room for our struts. So now we can go ahead and remove our 3 15mm nuts holding our top hat in place for our strut. Grab our 15mm ratcheting wrench. I like the S wrenches for these. It gives you a little more room for a swing, but a regular ratcheting wrench will be just fine. And we're going to leave that on a few threads just to help out once we loosen our other bolts, just to hold that in place. So the rear one is kind of hard to see, but it's going to be directly center on the back side of your strut mount here. So we'll go ahead and loosen that up next. And remove that nut. Then we can begin loosening up the last one here. Go ahead and remove our other nut here. Now we're going to go ahead and grab ourselves a pry bar and get under our strut and go ahead and push down on our lower control arm. Try to pry our lower strut mount out. So now once you've got this process complete for this side, you can go ahead and repeat these same steps for the other side. So now that we have our struts out, we're going to need to go ahead and rotate our top hats to allow for our spacers to be in a position to correctly mount to the vehicle once we go back on. So what we're going to do is actually install our spacers like so. And reuse our factory nuts to go on with them. Get all of our nuts on. Then we're going to tighten them down with our 15mm socket on our impact. Okay, so now that those are tight, we're going to grab our spring compressor, compress this down so we can turn our top hats. So now we'll get our compressor hooked onto our springs. In these two sides first. We'll get our other two sides on. Okay, now that those are locked in, we'll go ahead and compress our spring. So for this one, we're going to use our 19mm socket on our impact and run this down. Now that we have this compressed, you're going to note the orientation of the factory top hats with the bottom mount. So it pretty much comes up straight. These two bottom mount bolts come up straight to your top mount bolts. So now we're going to loosen up our top hat retainer nut using our 18mm socket on our impact. Now we've gone ahead and sprayed some penetrating lubricant on there just to help us out a little bit. Now that we have that loose, should be able to turn our top hat or our bottom mounting point, whichever is easier to turn. So we'll go ahead, turn that. And we want our new orientation to be two bottom mounting studs have one mounting stud going through the center. So we're almost there. And we'll go ahead and tighten down our top hat retainer nut, again with our 18mm socket. Now we can loosen up our spring compressor. Then we'll go ahead and do the same thing for the other strut. Now we're going to go ahead and mark where we need to trim our factory top hat studs down so they are flush or just under flush from our spacer here. So I'm going to mark with my Sharpie about right where the nut ends. Again, this is why we tightened it down onto the top hat beforehand. So once we have those marked, we can go ahead and remove all of our stuff and get our studs trimmed down. So we'll again grab our 15mm socket, run our nuts off. So now we can go ahead and grab our cutting wheel and go ahead and zip down our studs to where we need them. Now it's important to note when using a cutting wheel, you want to ensure you have your guard in place and you're wearing safety glasses of some sort, shatterproof or whatever. Keep all hands free and clear of the blade. Now once we have all of our studs cut, we can go ahead and grab a whiz wheel with a flap disc or sanding pad, whatever you got. And go ahead and just clean up all the burrs on your studs. Now that we have those cut and cleaned up, we can go ahead and install our spacer onto our strut. We're going to use our factory bolts again to secure it down. We'll grab our 15mm socket on our impact and tighten these down. Now once you've got this complete, you can go ahead and repeat these same steps for your other strut. So now we're ready to get our strut back into our vehicle here, and we've got a buddy that's going to grab our pry bar and pry down on the lower control arm just to give us enough room to get our studs into the lower mounts and our tops lined up. So we'll go ahead and get our lower mounting points in. I'm going to push up on our control arm while he pries down. So now that we have our strut in, we can go ahead and get our top mounting hardware in place. And you have your provided bolt, lock washer, and flat washer with your kit. Now your kit also does come with red Loctite. For demonstration purposes, we will not be putting that on ours, but if you're doing this at home for a permanent fixture, you definitely want to go ahead and dab a little Loctite on your threads before you install your bolts into your strut. All right, so we've got our first 2 bolts in just to line everything up. It is a little bit tricky to get these to line up because you can't really see the bolt holes from this position. So now that we have our first 2 in, we'll go ahead and get our last one in the back there. Now that we have this one started, we'll go ahead and tighten these down. So now we'll grab our 15 mil ratcheting wrench and tighten these down. Now again, your back one's hard to see, but we've gone ahead and got that started. Now we'll tighten it down. Next, we can go ahead and install our lower strut mounting nuts. We're reusing the factory 18 mil nuts here. We'll go ahead and get those tightened down. Now we'll grab our 18 mil socket on our impact and tighten these up. And remember, you always want to refer to your manufacturer specific torque spec for all of your hardware when you're tightening it back down. So now we can go ahead and get our knuckle back into our upper ball joint. It's back in position. Now you may need a pry bar to get your upper control arm down into position. That down, and we'll grab our factory nut, get that loosely back in place. That'll hold that from going anywhere. So now we can go ahead and get our bungee cord off of here, get that out of the way. And we can go ahead and tighten down our upper ball joint nut. Now we'll go ahead and grab our 18 mil socket and our swivel adapter, get this tightened down. Next, we'll go ahead and get our tie rod back into our knuckle. Get that seated. We'll reinstall our factory nut here. Now we'll go ahead and grab our 21 mil socket on our impact and tighten this down. Now we can go ahead and reinstall our sway bar end link nut. So now we've got a pry bar in on top of our sway bar, and we're just going to apply a little pressure to it, and that'll prevent our end link from spinning while we tighten this down. So if you do find you're having trouble with your end link spinning, you can grab a 21 mil wrench and a 6 millimeter Allen socket on your ratchet. Go ahead and pop that on. And then tighten that down. Now we'll go ahead and grab our 35 mil axle socket and run our axle nut back in. Now we'll go ahead and reinstall our rotor. That on. And to keep this from swinging out like this, we're going to go ahead and grab one of our lug nuts. Run that onto our stud. That'll keep your rotor straight while we reattach the rest of our brake system. Now we can go ahead and reinstall our brake caliper bracket. Get that lined up. Grab our factory hardware, get that back in place. Now we'll go ahead and grab our 18 mil socket on our ratchet and tighten these back down. Once we have those tight, we can go ahead and reinstall our pads. We're simply going to slide back into their little mounting tabs here. That pad in, we'll do the same thing for our outer pad. Next, we can go ahead and reinstall our caliper. Grab it off our caliper hook. Put this on. Reinstall our caliper bolts. And we'll grab our 15mm socket and run these back in. So now we'll go ahead and take our 10mm bolt back out for our brake line and ABS line bracket. Get that bracket back into place. Reinstall our 10mm bolt here. Then we'll tighten that down with our 10mm socket on our impact. So now once you've got everything done for this side, you can go ahead and repeat the same process for the other side. Alrighty guys, that about wraps up our review and install of our FabTech 1.5-inch front leveling kit for your 21 to current Bronco. Thanks for watching, and as always, for everything Bronco, keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.